Hello and welcome to Back of the Net and Beyond, where today I'm going to be speaking to former Arsenal, Cardiff and Wales international Rhys Weston. How you doing, mate? You okay?
Yeah, good, DT. Thank you, pal. How are you?
All good, all good. Thanks for coming on, by the way.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Great to see you doing so well, mate.
Cheers, cheers. So if you just want to let the listeners know what you're up to nowadays.
Okay. So I stopped playing football in February 2014, I think it was. So just over 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago now.
Okay.
So I'm currently working at Brentford Football Club in the commercial team. So I manage a small team within the commercial department, looking at outbound sales opportunities effectively, and also been heavily involved in the season ticket process for our new stadium. So moving to a new stadium next season. So I've been there for the last 9.5, 10 months. I started mid-September. But since I've finished playing, I've done a couple of bits and pieces, which I'm sure we'll touch on during the course of this piece. But yeah, back in football on the other side of the fence though, which has been really interesting and challenging, but interesting. Really enjoying it.
So in terms of obviously your career, so you played football, as we all know, and you had a sustained career at a decent level as well. So congratulations for that. Now you're seeing things from a different perspective, even though you are, like you said, you're still involved in football, but you're seeing it from the other side of the fence. So how have you found that transition?
I just kind of wish I paid more attention when I was playing, to be honest with you, because it's what I have noticed is there's no direct synergy between the commercial side of the business and the playing side. It's two separate entities. You know,
Yeah.
you've got, I look on with envy sometimes at how well the team are doing, and you see the coaching staff and the camaraderie, the team spirit that the players have got between them. You know, Brentford's are quite an innovative club in the sense that they've gone down the route of having directors of football. So they've got two directors of football who look after all the operations, the recruitment, that kind of thing. And yeah, it's you think when you're at a football club, you're blissfully unaware of what actually goes on. You might know the club secretary. You might knock on his or her door just to ask for a couple of favours here and there. you might have a rapport with the chairman.
Yeah. And that's it. It ends there.
Yeah, that's it. Do you know what I mean? You of course, you have respect for the kit man and the kit lady and what have you. But in terms of how the business operates, I had no clue. So yes, it's really interesting to see. You start seeing all the opportunities that are available commercially for people that want to seem to be involved in football. I mean, I'm not directly involved in partnerships, but even the sums of money that are being discussed around opportunities to be associated with a championship, soon to be Premier League football club. It's amazing. So for me, yeah, it's a period of adaptation, I guess. But because I've been working for 5 years prior to coming into this role, I think I probably had a slightly less daunting, I think, coming into it because I had a bit of experience from sales and what have you before getting the job at Brentford. But yeah, it's definitely something that I wish I paid more attention to previously, for sure.
So you mentioned that you had kind of sales experience and obviously you kind of enhanced your transferable skills through those 5 years of working prior to doing what you're doing now. So talk us a little bit about kind of when you stepped away from the game and then kind of what were you doing? What was your next kind of career path?
Yeah, so again, it was I didn't really have a transition per se. So I had a career in the injury, so that was what kind of finished me off. But to be honest with you, in hindsight, it was probably the right time for me to step away anyway. I think I was playing league football, but not playing to the level that I should have been. For my own standards. I think that's down to a number of factors, but sore knees being the primary reason for it. And so I get injured. I had an operation. I was laid up for a couple of weeks, in a knee brace, couldn't move. And then a couple of friends of mine started a golf travel business. Must be close on 15 years ago now. And I'd spoken to them, at various points throughout the years about, what you're going to do when you finish playing. And I was like, I don't know. I'll get round to it at some point, But then, all of a sudden you're sitting at home doing nothing. And my mate said to me, why don't you come into the office a couple of days a week just to keep yourself ticking over, keep yourself busy? Sitting at home watching shitty daytime TV is not the way forward, is it? When you've got time to think about stuff. So I went into the office a couple of days a week. That turned into 4 days a week. It then got to the point where they're going, listen, we can't be paying you to be the office kind of lackey going around just doing bits and pieces here and there. So you have to start earning your keep. So we want you to get stuck into sales. And I'm like, well, I like golf, but I don't know anything about the product side of the business. He said, no, you'll learn, don't worry about it. So I just got stuck on a pod of 7 people, given a phone, a headset, and off you go. I mean, I was lucky; it was inbound sales, so I wasn't cold calling per se. But yeah, I was picking up the phone to people that, you know, and golfers, golfers are quite particular and can be quite awkward at times. I mean, they know what they want.
Yeah.
So you're fielding inquiries, you're trying to muddle your way through. But yeah, a great introduction to the real world, as I'll refer to it as, you know, in sales being central to everything in business effectively. So yeah, long and short, I was there. I ended up from 2 days a week, I ended up being there for 4.5 years. So I started on the sales floor, then kind of worked my way into the events and sales side of that business. And then latterly I was looking after the B2B side of the business. So looking at, you know, media, golf brands, those kind of things who are doing their corporate travel and bits and pieces, trying to help facilitate their trips. So I got a good understanding of it. But then, you know, in terms of progression and working with your friends can be quite challenging. So I obviously wanted to develop and also to earn some more money. And I kind of got to the point where they couldn't make up another role for me. And there was nowhere else for me to go, barring into senior leadership, which I wasn't ready for. So I moved into hospitality briefly. I went to Gaucho Restaurant Group. I worked there for a few months, but then they went to administration, which seems to follow me around a little bit. Same thing happened at Dundee, but I went into administration. But again, I saw a little bit of the hospitality industry, saw enough of it to realise that I probably wasn't cut out for it, having a young family as well, and the amount of commitment and time it would have taken. So that didn't last too long, if I'm being honest with you. I then had like a 3-month period of gardening leave. So this is now, I don't know, 5 years post-career. And it's the first time, that 3-month period, I think, when I left Gaucho, that I had a time to reflect about stuff. And that's when you start going down the rabbit hole a little bit and start thinking about, you know, career choices, you know, during your career, what have I done that? What if I'd have stayed there? What if I hadn't gone there? What if I hadn't done that? And, you know, that's where I think, you know, if you start dwelling on stuff like that, that's when things can go a little bit sideways. So thankfully I've got a young daughter, so having her around kind of recalibrates you every day, you know, when you're sitting there. You're sitting there going, shit, where did my life go wrong? All of a sudden she just belly flops you from the middle of out of nowhere, and you're like, okay, all right, let's get on with your day. Exactly. And then I ended up meeting someone through to a mutual friend of ours that ran an events and communications company in Putney, which was local. So I went in there as like a senior commercial executive, trying to procure sponsorship and partnerships for their kind of their flagship event they hosted annually. But then whilst I was there, the opportunity at Brentford presented itself, and as much as I was very grateful for the opportunity I had for the events and communications agency, you know, the opportunity to go back into football on the commercial side, I felt, you talk about transferable skills, I think what I picked up from my playing days and the experience I'd gained from being in the sales environment, I thought, well, you know, if I can amalgamate the two and go into football on the commercial side, let's see what happens. And I'm again very, very fortunate. You know, I actually thought I applied for a different role than I got, which was a little bit embarrassing. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it was a partnerships executive role that I saw. But when I spoke to the recruiter, he's like, "No, mate, that was filled about 7 months ago. So I'm not sure what you've seen." I've gone, it's a bit awkward. He's gone, "Well, yeah, mate, was it a telesales lead role?" I said, "Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I just kind of want to work in football." No, but I was again very lucky. I met the commercial director and struck up a really good rapport with him. Again, a couple of interviews later, and I was offered the job, and it was like, wow, okay. And it's the first real kind of like proper buzz about an opportunity I'd had since I'd finished playing. You know, going back into an environment that I thought I knew, but you know, it's different. It's very different. But the beauty about Brentford is that the CEO's door is open, the chairman's door is open. I've got a direct line into the commercial director. He's my boss. I report directly into him. But the hierarchy's there, but it's invisible. Do you know what I mean? So you can approach people and you can ask questions. And I mean, 10 months has flown by, mate. I've loved every second of it, I've got to admit.
That's mad. I mean, so just to go back slightly, you said you applied for the job at Brentford, and it was completely, well, it was something else, that obviously what you're doing now. And you mentioned that the role wasn't even there when you applied. So when that kind of when you spoke to whoever you spoke to, the person that was interviewing you, and he said, "Look, this role's been filled." What happened at that point? Did he then say, "Well, we've got this other role," or did you have to go back and kind of research again? How did that happen?
No, it was. I think it was just a genuine misinterpretation of what I'd read. I mean, thankfully, he took it as it was. It was a recruiter, but he was directly associated with Brentford, so it wasn't.
Right.
You know, it was a little bit embarrassing on my behalf, but you know, after he still entertained the conversation about it, and it transpires that I had seen the right position as well. I just thought I'd apply for something else, but yeah, it's funny how these things come about, because apparently they've been looking to fill the role for a while.
Oh wow!
And it was getting to that point where they wanted someone that had a really good understanding of football, but also sales experience.
Yeah.
So what you're finding is you've got people that got really good sales experience, but don't have a great understanding of football.
Yeah.
So sometimes, mate, it's right place, right time. You know, it is what it is. You know, there are a million reasons for me not to apply for that job. Do you know what I mean? It could have been. It just happened to be at the right time in the right place, and very, very fortunate, I guess. Very fortunate in that regard.
That's class, mate. You mentioned, obviously, so you've retired, and then you got the opportunity through your friends having that golf business, and you kind of got thrown in at the deep end. That it kind of resonates with, say, my transition. So when I finished playing, I just organically just applied for a job like anyone else does, and then I had an interview process, got to the second stage, and then had another one. But I remember on my first couple of days, they basically just said, "Look, you need to just pick up the phone." It's not that I was nervous; it was just a case of kind of looking around thinking, well, it's a new environment. I'm happy that I found a job, because I know how hard it is to find a job, especially with just a sports-based CV. So from that perspective, I was really grateful, but kind of I wanted to push myself. So they just said, look, you just need to get on the phones, and you're going to make your mistakes, you're going to do this and that, but you'll work your way around it. And I think that was probably one of the best pieces of advice I got at that point, just because for me, how I learn, you can tell me all day and I'll understand it, but until I actually do it, it is kind of that the level of understanding is different. So for me, it was a case of just getting on the phone and trying to sell a service, and trying to sell the company and understanding legislation. And it was difficult initially, just because certain conversations, people were seeing that because I was in the office, I kind of knew everything about the industry. And to a certain extent, that's fine now, because I'm 7 years on from that. I can handle that, and that's fine. But kind of fresh from football and into a new industry, I didn't know anything really. So it was difficult, and it's just a case of listening to people, how they kind of entertain clients and how they deal with kind of certain matters that are thrown up on a daily basis. So it was one of those. It was a learning curve, and it was I wouldn't say it was difficult. It was just something that I had to embrace. And
would you say challenging rather than difficult, right?
That's it, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it sounds a little bit like obviously your situation, and you kind of just thrown in at the deep end, and you have to
but that's it. I mean, you mentioned about transferable skills, and again, until you try to apply those skills to something, you don't know how transferable they are. Yeah. And that's one thing. The biggest thing I've learned, I think the biggest asset that I gained through playing is your ability to be resilient. And also your people skills. Yeah. You know, when you say you and I went to the division when we were 14 years old. You know what I mean? And you're in an environment with 16 lads. It's an unforgiving place. Yeah. You know, 100%. There's no holding back. When you're that age and you're pitched together with seemingly the best players from your age group in the country that all think they're all have been revered in their peer groups. It's an unforgiving place to go into. And if you know, and that bent and shaped me. And then going into the youth team. And again, just having the piss taken out of you constantly, it's one or two things is going to happen. You either deal with it or you crumble. And then as you develop, as your career develops, whether that's in sport or elsewhere, you know, you learn then what to take on board and what to dismiss. And I think when you 16, 17 years of doing it, at some point the penny's going to drop, and you realise that when you go into a business environment, if someone digs you out for something, you go, yeah, all right, no problem. You don't disappear into the toilets and have a cry for half an hour. You know, that's it. Everyone's different, but I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that I have a good understanding of people. I'm a good judge of character, I think. Well, in a work sense, maybe so. I'm a decent judge of character. I've managed to assemble a really good, young, dynamic team.
Yeah.
And they all get on well. I get on well with them. And also, yeah, the ability just to look at things objectively and not take things personally. And that you can apply to anything. And I think, you know, if anyone's got a misconception about, you know, sports people just being one-dimensional, you're driven, you're determined, you're disciplined, you're focused, all the generic terms that come with being a sports person. But you know, you forget about the other bits and pieces that you've had to contend with. So yeah, it's been a process, but now I can sit and say comfortably that I know what I'm reasonably good at, and I kind of half know how to apply it. I've got a long way to go. I'm nowhere near where I want to be in terms of, you know, career path. You know, you and I are in the same situation. The people we grew up with are now senior management, directors, partners, business owners. You know, we're playing catch up.
Yeah.
But that's not because we're not capable. It's just because we're behind the curve. We did something else. So it's giving yourself an opportunity, I think, and being open, as you've done, mate. Is being open to challenges and embracing challenges and trying your best to make the best of the situation.
That's it. You make a good point, because when we were kind of 25, 26, 27, we're still trying to kind of earn our keep in football to a certain degree, depending on what level you're playing at. And then you've got friends outside of the game who are they get into management roles and senior management, and by the time we're kind of coming to retirement, the generic, say 31, 32 up to 35, they're already established CEOs and things like that. So you mentioned about having the same capabilities or abilities or whatever it may be, but we're just playing catch up essentially. So it's not just a case of you're one dimensional and you played football or tennis or cricket or whatever, and that's all you can do and that's all you know. It's just a case of we had a different career path and we went left and they went right. And that's just how it is. So from an athlete's perspective, and also an industry and an organisation perspective, we all need to understand that, and we all need to understand where we are. You mentioned, obviously, you're working at Brentford, so just talk us through your average day in terms of what you're doing.
Well, it's been a bit different since lockdown, as you can imagine. But what it has done is dispelled the myth of working from home's a jolly up. Do you know what I mean? We've been working remotely en masse since the 20th of March, and managed to function to a fair degree of normality in terms of our output. But so my team's role prior to us selling season tickets for the new stadium was about looking at commercial opportunities within the commercial environment. So supporting the partnerships team, supporting the hospitality team, looking at, you know, B2B offerings. Where the new stadium, where our office is located, it's in the Golden Mile on the M4 in West London. It's you know, there's industry everywhere, and there's so many opportunities. So we're just basically trying to support the commercial pyramid. Sounds quite contrived, but that's effectively what we're doing, is looking for opportunities. But then we're always going to be heavily involved in the season ticket process. So getting all of our season ticket holders at Griffin Park over to the new stadium, and then trying to grow that fan supporter base. So going from 6,600 season ticket holders to 10,000. So yeah, we're 85% of the way there. And given the circumstances, it's not bad. But yeah, it's a case of, you know, we have a briefing every morning, 9:15 on Teams, check in, make sure everyone's okay, make sure we haven't lost anyone overnight, you know. Keep everyone focused, any technology issues, anything that's popped up for the night before. And then the guys get on with it, and we do a debrief at 5:15. Then everything in between is about planning, you know, troubleshooting, seeing what's coming next in terms of the landscape. It's an ever-moving landscape at the moment with football. Yeah. Are we going to go back next season with fans, without fans? So we're looking at legislations that are involved in that. So it's interesting, mate. It's really interesting. But again, I'm fortunate that I've got a very dependable team around me as well. And I think our stock is pretty high within the organisation, based on the fact that the young individuals that have been doing their jobs have done it to the very best of their ability, and consequently, you know, we're in a decent position in spite of lockdown. So we just need the team to continue doing what they're if I'm using the word if Brentford get into the Premier League, then, you know, what an achievement it'll be by everyone involved with the club.
That's what I was going to say, because obviously the first team are flying at the moment, and they're kind of pushing for promotion, obviously. We all know what kind of prospects and opportunities the Premier League brings. So with that in mind, obviously with them flying, I'm sure there's kind of a buzz around the place, and that resonates throughout the whole kind of area, if that makes sense. Not just in the stadium alone, but kind of with the fans and the whole kind of community from that perspective.
Yeah, and we see there's been a huge spike. You know, we hit a bit of a plateau, we'll say, about 6-7 weeks ago. But now football's returned, and of course, because the team have come back so strongly, you know, we see a big spike in interest back in season tickets again. So again, it's about, I think the key thing throughout this whole process is trying to keep people focused and motivated, because you leave people to their own devices sometimes. You know, we're doing the same thing every day. It can be quite challenging, but we've been quite lucky. We've faced quite a lot of different issues throughout the course of lockdown as a group.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the allure of the Premier League means that a lot of eyeballs are focusing on what Brentford are doing, and from a fan's perspective, they want to be involved. They want to be on the ride with us. So it's not a difficult sell when the team are winning and flying, because everyone wants to be a part of it. The challenges will come, you know, if results start having a bit of a dip, or you know, something happens adversely. But yeah, it's I think for the community, for the club, you know, being at Griffin Park, which I'm sure you played at over the years, it's been there since 1904, the stadium. So there's a lot of memories for people that have been going for a number of years. But for Brentford to evolve, the new stadium's that new dawn. And it's again, I said to my team, I said to them, you know, you have designs to work in football. I don't think you could have come into an organisation at a better time. You know, a lot of people come into a football club that's just moved stadium because they've grown their sales team, or a new stadium's 5 years in the pipeline. To come in on the cusp of the transition, actually work through the move. You know, that and you know, talk about CV and transferable skills for my young team. You know, to say that they've worked through a stadium move during a global pandemic. Well, you know, we've worked. We haven't, you know, a lot of people had to be furloughed to protect the business. But we've worked all the way through, continuously worked all the way through the process. And for them, you know, it's been invaluable experience for them, and for myself, obviously. But you know, that's what I think the most pride I take is the fact that the team have done so well. As a team that I effectively in the main put together. So it's been quite rewarding in that regard.
That's brilliant, mate. I'm really happy for you, and obviously fingers crossed for the first team. I'm sure they'll be fine anyway. But yeah, you mentioned earlier, you touched on the fact that you went to Lilleshall. So for the listeners out there, I think I mentioned previously on a couple of other podcasts that I've done with other guests as well. Lilleshall is now, it's basically a defunct service. Basically, it was the best 16, 17 players from the ages of 14 to 16 from across the UK, well, from across England, who attended there. And basically, you're representing England at a young age, and you basically board on site for 2 years, and you go to a generic kind of comprehensive school. So that's where me and you met, and obviously we've kept in contact as you do now and again throughout the years. But yeah, I mean, in terms of Lilleshall itself, how was that experience for you? 'Cause for me, I really enjoyed it. Obviously, at a young age, so leaving home and things like that, and that was difficult. But then you've got your teammates around you to pull you through that. And we all experienced our different kind of bout of, say, homesickness indirectly. And that's where you use your team kind of to pull each other through. How was your experience?
Yeah, I think I only realised how much I enjoyed it after I left. That makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in it, yeah, you're right, mate. You did it on the head. There are times where everyone went through their own kind of challenges. I think, you know, it's quite a hormonal environment to be in. You know, when you're, you know, a testosterone-filled, you know, a roller coaster ride of emotion, isn't it? You know, you've got 32 lads confined to 11 and a half on at a boarding house, effectively, which is what it was. All vying to be the best, and it's yeah. It took me a while. All right, darling. Thank you. Sorry, mate. Yeah, I think it took me a while to adapt to it, because again, you come from a little suburban area. You know, you've always been renowned as being a decent footballer in your respective schools, district, county, wherever that may be. And then you come into this environment with 15 other lads that are equally as good, if not better than you, better in the main. You know, and you don't really understand their backgrounds, the culture. So I think in terms of my character and development, it was invaluable You know, being in that environment, learning to stand up for yourself, not necessarily physically, but like mentally stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
And then coming back, going into youth team, you know, am I going to go to digs? No, I'm not going to go to digs. I've been away from home for 2 years, but going into the environment where, again, you've got guys that have been doing their own thing for 2 years. You come back in, you've got to prove yourself all over again because you've been at the FA National School, and people are looking at you a little bit skewed, going, "Who's this guy?" And you know, I've been playing schoolboy football for the last 2 years. Where have you been? And you've always got to prove yourself all over again. And all these little battles you go through, they help shape and bend you. But yeah, Liddershall, I mean, as I said, I don't speak to everybody regularly, but you know, we've made a couple of futile attempts to get a reunion together, and there's always different agendas. We tried most recently about 6 months ago, didn't we? Yeah. And we got very close to finding a date in 3 years' time. And three people left the group, and it just kind of fitted out. But no, but their relationship has stand the test of time, and that's because I think we all went through something together at that point where it was challenging, but it helped mold us into the characters we are today. And I think it's testament to the process, really. It's a shame that Liddershall doesn't exist anymore, because you know, I think it certainly equipped me for a career in sport. Although Keith Blunt would have argued differently when he told me to concentrate on my education as I was leaving.
I remember you told us.
Yeah, mate. I think we were in Brazil when that happened, or where were we? We were overseas somewhere when we had that.
I don't know, because I was injured because I had a hairline fracture. I don't know if you remember, in my back.
But you travelled though. I'm sure. Were you not away? I'm sure you came. I'm sure we were all away somewhere, were we not?
I didn't go to Brazil. I was in the squad, but I had to pull out because basically that was the start of my hairline fracture in my back. So I missed the last 4 or 5 months of the time at Liddershall. But I remember you saying we all had to go and have a chat with Keith. And he gave us hints and tips on what to do to kind of sustain a career. And I remember you were telling the group that. He said to you, you need to continue your education.
I mean, you talk about knockbacks in life, right? How do you deal with that? You know what I mean? I've just committed myself to
with Keith Blunt, because in saying that, he wasn't being harsh. He was just being real, and that's just how he was.
That's all. But that's all you. I think, mate. That's all you ever want. Yeah. That's all I want for my daughter, and you know, that's all I want from people. That is to. Look. You know, have the courage to have the courage of your convictions to make a judgment call, and if it's wrong, then you live by it. Do you know what I mean? I think that's all I want in my professional life is the opportunity to make decisions, but be held accountable for them. That's it. You know, given the autonomy to do your job properly. But if you make a mistake, then it's on you. That's not it. Not maximal authority, zero accountability. I'm not down for that.
No, I know what you mean. And I suppose what he said to you probably spurred you on, because we were all good players and we all had our ups and downs on the pitch. I mean, on the pitch, in terms of us as a team, how good were we as a team?
Frightening.
Absolutely.
Frightening. Yeah, I missed the Nordics as well. I did my ankle. I did my ankle in the regional games. See, we played the South East down at Bisham Abbey. I went up for a header, standard. No one near me rolled my ankle, and I couldn't go to the Nordics. But I felt that would have hindered my progress, to be fair. But I managed to catch back up again. But the trip you guys had when you went over there and you wiped the floor with everyone, because again, that was the kind of barometer, wasn't it, for year groups? Yeah. You're going to win the Nordics. You know,
the first thing to hear in the first couple of weeks of going is kind of, okay, seniors, it was always seniors and juniors. And obviously as a junior you go there, seniors used to always say, look, we won the Nordics, which was basically a Nordic Cup. So you go and obviously play in Scandinavia and you play kind of all the teams across the world. So when we went there, you don't realise how much pressure you're under, because we obviously knew, look, we can't go back and say we haven't won. But if we do, we need to have played well. But we went over there and won it, and I was so glad. I think I scored the winner in the final, to be fair.
Don't remember. You've been down that for years. What are you talking about?
I remember scoring because it was a throw-in. I think someone flicked it and I've got in at the near post and hit it to the roof of the net. I don't know if it was 2-1 or, I don't know, 2-0. I know I scored anyway, so that's my claim to fame.
That's what matters, mate. But I remember Ant Ullman, for example. You know, Ant was quite small, but as a defender. But I remember the confidence he had when he came back from the Nordics.
Yeah.
That kind of that made his experience. I think I would think he would agree if you spoke to him about it.
Mm.
You know, going there slightly shy and unsure.
Yeah.
Arguably, I think by all accounts, I remember him. You know, people telling me that he was, you know, arguably one of our best players in the tournament. And the confidence he had coming back.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it can do for you. You know, that's
Exactly.
what it can do.
Yeah, it was a crazy experience, and like you said, it's sad that it's no longer here with us. But for me, like a few things that kind of a few things that I wouldn't say I struggled with, but they took me aback slightly. And as you mentioned earlier, you kind of in your own say peer group, or whatever it may be, you're always known as the best or one of the best. When I went to Lillishall, the standard went from my perspective, from here to here. We had some crazy like kind of players in our team, and their level of understanding was ridiculous. Not only that, obviously I'm small now. I'm only 5'7", but when I was at Lillishall,
in heels.
Yeah, I was really small at Lillishall, probably I don't know, less than 5 foot anyway. But then when I saw people like yourself, Lee Canterville, Stuart Taylor, Matthew Gent, they're all like 6 foot, 6'2", 6'3". This is at the age of 14. So I was like, these guys are grown men. Like, what chance have I got? I always believed in my ability. It never hindered me on the pitch, but physically looking at some of you guys, absolute monsters. Ridiculous.
But that's you know, that's modern football now, isn't it? You look at how the game's evolved since we first came through. You know, 6 foot now, 6'4".
Yeah,
you know, I mean, you can run the 100 meters in 11 seconds. It's now 10 seconds. You know, I mean, it's everyone's fitter, quicker, stronger, bigger. You know, and that's evolution, isn't it? But yeah, it was a real test. It was a real test, I think. And as you rightly say, you know, everyone dealt with it in their own way. But my memories of you coming through, I just such an elegant footballer. Do you know what I mean? But you were, mate. Also, the ability you had was frightening, and you didn't let your size hinder you. You know, and again, when you think about modern day football and what's expected and what's required, especially people playing wide positions, be left back, right back, left wing. You know, the ability to forge a career in those positions is tough, really tough. You know, and again, I've got a huge amount of respect for what you've achieved in the game as well, and it's, I think that's something you learn also by spending time with good people and understanding how difficult it is. You have to have a healthy respect for what people have achieved.
100%. And so we graduated from Lillishall after 2 years. So you leave at the end of the 2 years, tender age of 16, and we've all gone our separate ways. So I've gone to Nottingham Forest, and you've gone to Arsenal. How was it kind of? You mentioned obviously going in the dressing room, and people weren't aware of who you were just because you hadn't been around for 2 years. You had to prove yourself and whatever else. But in terms of training, so you've gone through the youth team now. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. You've gone through the youth team. You're kind of in the reserves established, and then you're training with the first team. What was it like to be training with Bergkamp, Henry, Pires, all those guys on a daily basis?
Terrifying. It honestly, mate. I kid you not. I would say that I only really became anywhere near comfortable in that environment about 3 weeks before I left.
Really?
Because it was one of those ones. I don't know how you found it, but we were kind of a group within a group. The reserves at Arsenal at that point in time, there was about the nucleus of about 10 or 11 people. On any given day, George Armstrong, God rest his soul, you know, he would be left with like 4 or 5 bodies because, you know, Pat Rhys would walk over and go, right, you're with us today, and George would go, right, okay, so we'll run them. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
But again, in terms of education, mate, I was very fortunate to work with Don Howe. I was very fortunate to work with George Armstrong, with Pat Rhys, with Arsene Wenger, with Boro Primorac, these guys that help shape the Premier League, you know. And again, the bits and pieces you pick up from them, you don't necessarily understand it at the time. And again, advanced hindsight would be a wonderful thing, wouldn't it? If you could tell your 16, 17-year-old self, you know, what you now know, I think careers would have been very, very different. But no, I loved every second of it. And I was very fortunate to get a little bit of a sniff of first team action. But it was great. It was great. I loved it. And you know, once some relationships that will stand the test of time as well.
And you mentioned there you got a sniff of first team action. So how was your debut for the club? How did that feel pulling on the shirt?
Yeah, amazing. So it was the Worthington Cup back then. So it was Middlesbrough away, and I came on at half time. Oleg Luzhin had pulled his groin, so I came on at half time. I was I came on at centre back, and it was Brian Dean and Hamilton Rickard were the two strikers for Middlesbrough. So you're talking about units. Wow. But you know what? It was weird. It was just such a blur. I loved it. I feel like I gave a good account of myself. You know, that it was a decent Borough side. I mean, Gazza played, Juninho played. I'm guessing Gareth Southgate may well have been there at that point as well. I don't know. I'm just chucking names at you now, but no, I really enjoyed it. And you know, to think it was the same team that Ashley Cole made his debut in, Jermaine Pennant made his debut in.
All right.
I think it was one of Thierry Henry's first games as well. At that point. So yeah, great memories. And it was, if anything, it gave me a bit of false hope, to be honest with you, because I played that game. I played the second half and then the whole of extra time. And then the next game was there was a league game, which I think I was on the bench for, and then we played Blackpool in the FA Cup.
Okay.
Can you stop shouting, please? Yeah, don't shout at Mummy, darling. You should be in bed now. What time is it? Yeah, decent parenting. I think there was a game against Blackpool in the FA Cup third round at Highbury, and you know what the lads are like. They're going, "Oh, you must have a sniff. You must have a sniff." I think one of the first team centre backs was struggling, whatever it may be. And you know, given the fact I've done well against Middlesbrough, it was Blackpool in the FA Cup third round. Blackpool, I think at that point were second division. Do you know what I mean? It's like if ever there's a chance. And he played Manu Petit centre back, and I sat on the bench, and it was like, oh, that's a bit of a blow.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that season, we'd already secured Champions League, and then played up at Newcastle, like last game of the season. So that was my one Premier League game. We were at Newcastle. We got thumped 4-2. But again, unbelievable experience. You know, Alan Shearer, Kieran Dyer, Gary Speed. It was amazing. And the experiences will live long in the memory. And it's only really, mate, when you're pressed to talk about it, you can really appreciate it. You know, it's not something you scream from the rooftops. You know what I mean? It's part of your DNA, and it's part of your history and your past. But you know, it's when the nostalgia only comes when you start talking about it. You know, and you realise actually it's pretty fucking cool achievement. Do you know what I mean? It's
massive. And like you said, once you're involved in it and kind of you're involved in that environment, it's just part of the norm. And then, like you said, until you kind of sit down and someone broaches the conversation with you, that's when you kind of recollect and think, actually, it's quite an achievement. I speak to people all the time and they say, oh, like if I was you, I'd talk about it all the time. And it's like, well, you wouldn't, because it's not something you bring up. Like, you're not going to introduce yourself and say, oh, by the way, I used to play football. Like, I speak to people all the time and they don't know I used to play football. So, and that's fine with me. I'm not one of those people to shout from the rooftop like you said about it. So, but yeah, massive achievement. So you've left Arsenal, you've gone to Cardiff, and this is where you started to establish yourself now in the game. How have you done at Cardiff? Because you got promotion, I think, was it a couple of times with Cardiff?
Yeah.
It
was great in the main. I was there for just shy of 6 years in total. So I think I played over 200 games for them. I would say 90% of the time I spent there was positive. The latter part was challenging, but you're going to get that in football. And in a business that's based on opinion, you know, you're always going to be someone's first choice, and that is what it is. And that's, you know, backtracking, it's like that's where those transferable skills come into effect. You learn to be cast aside, and you learn to dig in and get on with it. But yeah, some fantastic memories there. As you say, two promotions. The most memorable being beating QPR at the Millennium Stadium. You know, 75,000 people while Wembley's being built. So it's like a home from home, really. So that, yeah, incredible memories of that. You know, playing Championship football. Yeah, great. It was great. I just wish I wish I could have sustained it for longer. If I'm being honest with you, and these are the questions, the little dark chasms that open up in the back of your mind when you start challenging yourself of why did you do that, and why did you do that, and why did you say that. But you know, in the main, yeah, it's been great experiences at Cardiff. I gained international recognition mainly from my performances at Cardiff. I got fast tracked into the Welsh squad when I made my debut for Arsenal, but without earning it. And you get what I mean? It was a case of, you know, young lad, get him involved in the squad. But I think I really earned my place in the squad when I was, you know, playing regularly for Cardiff. And yeah, it was a great time in my career for sure.
I was going to touch on the Wales the Wales scenario, because I thought that you got called up when you were at Cardiff, kind of established player, but you mentioned there you got called up, was it into the first team, like the main squad?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so effectively what had happened was, getting towards the back end of that season, the under-21s manager, West under 21 manager had contacted me, probably about 2 weeks before I played against Newcastle.
Okay.
And was basically sounding me out, saying, "Look, we've got a tournament in the summer. You know, what are your thoughts on it?" And I was like, "Yeah, do you know what? Cool. It sounds great. You know, father's Welsh, always had a strong connection with Wales. He spent a lot of time there visiting grandparents, etc." And then obviously I made my debut then in the Premier League, and then I got a phone call from the team manager, not as in the guy that coordinates the squad, effectively saying, "Oh, by the way, Mark Hughes would like to call you up into the senior squad." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Yeah, we're playing Brazil in Cardiff, and you've been drafted into the squad." I was like, "Well, that's not too shabby." So I sat on the bench. Granted, I sat on the bench. I remember just sitting there, just in awe, going, "This is bizarre." And then Silvinho played for Brazil, so it was nice seeing him in a different environment. So I had a chat with him. But they're the kind of things that validate you as a person. I think when you're a young lad, speaking to one of your contemporaries. Although Silvinho was a first team regular at Arsenal, and you know, he and I did not have any kind of personal relationship whatsoever. He was a first team player, I was a reserve team player. But the fact that we had that, you know, we had that kind of common denominator being on the international scene, it kind of made me feel a little bit like, actually, you know, done all right here. And then I went back into the 21s after that for a year. Had a minor indiscretion, was left out of Welsh squads for about a year after that, and then I got back into the first team squad for the 2002-2003 campaign, I think it was. Yeah, so I was involved in, I think, 14 out of 16 squads under Mark Hughes. Managed to get 6 caps for him in the process, 1 under John Toshak.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was great experience.
And in terms of the squad, so you're playing with the likes of Giggs and kind of, who else was in the squad at that point?
Yeah, so it was it's called the old guard, but yeah, Ryan Giggs, John Hartson, Craig Bellamy was just coming to the fore as a global talent. Gary Speed, you have Mark Pembridge, Mark Delaney, you have Paul Jones, goalie, Robbie Savage. It was a great squad, squad, and again, being in that environment was invaluable as well. You know, learning from people like that, but also a big drinking culture as well. So I got to see both sides of it. So, I mean, these superstars, these guys that have played the highest level, could drink like superstars as well. It was brilliant. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
That's good. I mean, from the outside looking in, people assume that to get to the top and whatever, you need to be some type of angel, just kind of go to training, train hard, do a bit of extra training, which is great, and then go home and just go in your shell.
Dan, sorry, 1 second. What is it, darling? Can you give me 1 second? I was going to open the baby gate for us as you get upstairs, all right? Give me 1 second. Sorry, pal. 1 second.
All right.
You're a pain. Right, go on upstairs. Wave bye to Danny.
Bye, Danny.
Good girl. Right, I'll be going. Go. I'll see you in a minute. Sorry, pal.
No, that's all right.
Oh.
Basically, I was just saying, so sometimes from the outside looking in, people have a perception of athletes and they just think that you just need to train and kind of just go home and kind of just, I don't know, go into hibernation. But you can have a social life. You can kind of let your hair down now and again. And a lot of the top players who I've come across, they're always kind of the first kind of to maybe instigate a night out or a meal out or some type of social event. So, I mean, you touched on it there, and obviously it was still happening. Obviously happening more so those times than it is now. Football's moved on slightly.
And social media, mate. Social media has changed the whole face of professional sport across the whole spectrum.
Definitely.
We never had that. We never had that. And I know social media is a whole different topic of conversation. But you know, the question is, you know, it's not a case we did anything wrong or anything scandalous, but could our generation have had the freedom to express ourselves both on and off the field as we did, had social media been in effect? And the answer to that question is absolutely not.
No chance.
Absolutely not.
No chance.
Mate, if you got spotted in a bar at a silly hour, it would take 2 days for it to get to the papers. And by that time, you've had a chance to get stuck into the gaffer and tell him, listen, this might happen. And,
yeah.
But you know, now it's So the professional sport across the whole spectrum has moved to a whole different level with the emergence of social media, and I think that's also where, you know, habits have changed. As you rightly say, you can still have a social life, but you need to be, you know, you've got to look after yourself. You've got to look after your own. You've got to invest in yourself, haven't you? That's the thing.
Yeah,
invest in yourself. It's a short-lived career. That's a short-lived career.
Definitely. So we touched on obviously Arsenal, gone to Cardiff, established yourself, and then you've got into the Wales squad, and that was amazing. And then you've obviously sustained a career for another 10, 12 years, and we ended up meeting each other in Iceland, as in Iceland, the country.
How random was that?
So strange, because we hadn't spoken for years, and then I get a random call from an agent, have a few conversations, and he kind of mentions that got an opportunity for me to go and play in Iceland at one of the best teams over there. I don't know if I knew you were over there at that point. I can't quite remember. I must have done. And I think I contacted you and asked you kind of how it was and whatever else. And you just said, look, you kind of sold it to me, which in some ways you being there helped me make a decision, because I knew I was going there and you were kind of in the same area that I was going to be in. So we could obviously kind of just hang out together. And obviously the standard of football over there. And I was surprised, to be honest, even off the back of how you sold it to me. I was still surprised how good it was over there. I mentioned this before speaking to other people, and I said, kind of my time in Iceland, everything, so from on the pitch, off the pitch, and everything else that's kind of involved in that kind of environment, is probably the most professional I've felt since maybe leaving Leicester and playing at, say, Bournemouth, which is a decent level. Just because the intensity of training, the intensity of games, how kind of serious they took football, the coaching, the level of understanding, the team ethic. It was like a family environment. And I spoke to a few other kind of UK-based players when I was over there, and they just said it was exactly the same as what I mentioned at their club as well. So it seemed like it ran through every kind of club within the league. How did you find your time in Iceland, bearing in mind that you're playing for probably the second best team, because our team was the best team?
We were defending champions, but still, I loved every second of it. I loved it. I mean, genuinely, it was a half challenging time of my life as well to go over there. But as you rightly say, mate, culturally, it's one of the most welcoming, laid back environments that I've found myself in. And the fact that I was in Reykjavik. I lived across the road from the stadium, the training ground, with one and the same thing. I had a car, but I could drive into town within 5 minutes. And obviously, you were there. Dave Elibert, RS Lab, was there, who I kind of randomly bumped into. And just that whole kind of, I loved it. I was genuinely gutted to leave. Gutted to leave. I was supposed to be there for 2 years, and thanks to your team, FH, we couldn't win. We decided we weren't going to win the league with about 6 games to go, and because I was the only full-time, I think me and one other lad were the only 2 full-time players. In Iceland, the majority is semi-professional. Although it's a full-time league, it's a semi-professional league in the sense that most guys have a day job as well. So they've come to me and gone, "We've got to get you off the wage bill," and I'm like, "Well, it's not ideal. You know what I mean? I've
Mm.
been here 6 months. I've loved it. You know, I've been given dispensation to go back to the UK for the winter. Go on loan to, if you can find someone that's willing to take you, be that League Two, League One, Conference, wherever it may be. Go and play throughout the winter. Come back at the start of next season. Don't worry about the preseason element of it. And to have that kind of cut short was gutting, genuinely gutting. And obviously, I came back from Iceland in September, and then couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Because you know, I was out. Yeah, it was a case of I was out with the transfer window. So yeah, it was a real shame, but I loved it, mate. Again, reconnecting with you was one of the highlights, because you know, if you said the people that I would have met over there, you know, it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I'm just glad I didn't actually play against you, because that would have been embarrassing.
Yeah, I second that. I loved it over there as well, and just the whole experience, just being in a different country. They seem to embrace foreigners, and everyone spoke English as well, so it made kind of the move a lot easier. It's just a relaxed place, relaxed atmosphere.
Yeah, it's a really cool place. Oh yeah, absolutely. And you're actually spot on, mate. It was, you know, a very welcoming, non-discriminative environment where everybody was welcome effectively, and yeah, loved it, and the nightlife wasn't bad either.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, in terms of your end at Iceland, it's similar to mine, really. I mean, there was talks about extending. The players were kind of saying, look, you need to stay. And I remember you saying in the car a few times after after training, we normally go into town and just have like a coffee or whatever it would be. And you were saying, like, you need to stay for another year, because obviously I think you already had another year, did you say?
I had a year. I signed a 2-year contract. Yeah.
Well, that's it. So you were kind of adamant that I needed to stay, and I still wasn't sure, because I had a young family. I only had one child at the time, who was 3, and I was only a year into my marriage. So my wife was at home; she was still working and things like that. So I had all those things to contend with. But if they had put something on the table to me, I probably would have had to have a conversation with family back home, because.
But we spoke about that. Yeah, the options you had, though, about your family moving out and what have you. That was how seriously it was being taken. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then similar scenario again. It came down to finances, and like you mentioned, I was full time. Although it's a full time leave, everyone else in the team, bar maybe me and a couple of others, were kind of working. So they'd go to work in the day and come to train in the evenings. So in terms of finances, again, it was one of those where potentially they just had to get me off the wage bill, and then came back in the start of October, and again, can't really play in the UK, so I was kind of just going on, not on trial, but just going to train with local clubs just to try and keep myself fit. And at that point, I was on a crossroads, and then came Christmas time, and I just thought, you know what, I need to look at something else, and I applied for a job, and then thankfully got the job, and haven't really looked back since. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise, really, because I'd always have to work, because obviously financially it meant I had to. So if I'd carried on playing for another 3 or 4 years, who knows, I may have been struggling to get a job. So it's one of those things that I look at, and it's kind of, like I said, blessing in disguise.
See, you almost, when you get to the kind of the final stretch, every year is delaying the inevitable. As you say, if you say, unless you're one of the 0.001 percentile of the professional sport, you know, the upper echelons in professional sport that could earn enough money never to work again. Exactly. Every year that passes in your 30s is delaying the inevitable, you know. And you're right. I think and also, Dan, having the courage to make that call, and also going out on your own terms. That's something I think that I think a lot of people could make peace with a decision if it's their own to make. Do you know what I mean? If that's taken away from you, that can be quite debilitating. But you know, the fact that you decided, do you know what? That's me. I'm going to go and do something else. You know, I think that in itself is something you should be really proud of it, because a lot of people can't make that call. And that's when you find when something stops and you're not ready for it, that's when the problems spring up, isn't it? And I think if you've got the presence of mind to identify when perhaps your stock isn't where it once was, or you don't feel that you can get back to where you need to be, you know, to make that call is an incredibly brave decision to make.
That's so true. So I mean, just to bring it to a close, we've obviously touched on initially about kind of your retirement process, and you've mentioned that it was cut short through injury, which again is unfortunate. Do you think more help's needed for athletes? So again, we always relate to football because we used to be footballers, but I'm talking about sport in general now. So generically, when it comes to athletes transitioning away from their chosen field into whether it be another field completely different, like myself and kind of like yourself to a certain degree, or within their chosen field, but just doing a different kind of, they've chosen a different career path, maybe gone into coaching or whatever. Do you think more help's needed from organisations or kind of the club that they're affiliated with or organisation that they're affiliated with?
Yeah, I don't think it's a straightforward answer, to be honest with you, because we as a we use the term we, the generic we, athletes in general are, we're our own worst enemies at some point, and you need to be brave enough to have a conversation about it. If you want an opportunity, then you have to be brave enough to go and find that opportunity. That I think you have to get out of your own way, because a lot of people that are in an elite bubble become quite self-entitled. And you have to understand that once you no longer have a value to an organization, you're no longer their problem. And the sooner you realize that, as a rule, then you'll be able to kind of go, right, shit, I've got to roll my sleeves up here. Of course, there are some organizations that are better than others in looking after their alumni. But I think, absolutely. I think people need to be given the confidence and they have the courage of their convictions that there is life after professional sport. Simo will be delighted I've just coined this phrase for him, but there's life after professional sport, and organisations, in our environment, like the PFA, for example, they have been very supportive of me. Can they do more? Absolutely. Can they be more proactive? Yes. But they also need help and guidance from their members. To suggest it's all good and well saying, well, the PFA have done nothing for me. Well, what do you want them to do?
Exactly.
What role can they fulfill to make your life easier? I look at the RPA. I know the CEO of the RPA, and I had a conversation with him a couple of years ago about it. And they're a very proactive organisation in the sense that, so whereas our union has one delegate to maybe 12, 14 clubs, the Rugby Players Association have one personal development manager per 3 clubs.
Right.
So what they have is that one person regionally going to the 3 clubs once, twice, 3 times a week. They have a rapport with the players, they have a rapport with the staff. They have access, and they can talk to, and they can guide, and they can counsel. So but you have to be receptive to these things as well. So I've digressed ever so slightly. I didn't mean to, because it's not a straightforward question. I think it's very easy. Yes, we need to be given more support to transition out of professional sport, but you also need to be prepared to look and source opportunity, ask questions, and if you want help, you have to put yourself in a position to get help, and also, don't expect people to just kind of open doors for you. You have to ask the difficult questions, and you have to have a certain amount of self-evaluation. And again, it's a tricky one. But what I will say is that what I found, and the thing I've coming out of sport has allowed me to do, it's allowed me to reinvent myself. So whatever character you may have had as a sports person, so I was quite self-critical, or I would, I think even probably up until my late 20s, we've struggled to deal with adversity within a game. If I made a bad pass, or I conceded a goal, or I had a bad game, would really affect me. But I didn't want to take that baggage with me into the workspace. So you kind of create this narrative around, well, this is who I am now, a bit more confident, a bit more self-assured. Am I? Depends, in the environment, but you can reinvent yourself, and that's, I think it's one of those ones where you've got to find the balance between what you've learned, what you've gained, but also understanding that no one's going to hand anything to you, and you want help in terms of professional development. Then you have to ask questions of people. You can't expect it to be given to you, and don't bemoan the fact that no one supported you if you haven't asked for it. That makes sense.
That's a massive point. I always say my kind of motto is, if you don't ask, the answer's always going to be no. And as we all know, we've all left club before, and we all say, yeah, we'll catch up on that. And you never do. And once you've left the club, you're immersed in your new club. And that's just how it is. And once you've left the game, it's amazing. The phone stops ringing. I never really expected it to continue ringing anyway. I always had that mindset. But I always had the gumption to go out and get help, whether it be from family, friends, whoever. Because even to this day, when I try and get people on the podcast, I'll ask whoever. I don't care. Because people say to me, how do you get such and such on? It's like, just ask.
Just ask, yeah.
That's it. All they can say is no. They can't really say anything else. And even if they do, it's not going to deter me from doing what I want to do anyway. But you make a lot of good points there, and I really enjoyed the chat. Obviously, continue to do what you're doing. I'm really proud of you, obviously, just because I know you on a personal level as well.
I appreciate it, Danny. Thank you.
No problem. If you just want to touch on what transferable skills you've taken from playing football into doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, of course. Again, thank you for the opportunity to have this chat with you, mate. It's nice to have these conversations and to air things out. I think it's really helpful. That it is genuinely helpful. But in terms of transferable skills, I think it's just having the ability to be resilient in the face of adversity. I think in sport, in any walk of life, let's not make it just solely about sport. But my experiences in sport, you get a lot of knockbacks, be that through injury, be that through a manager not liking you, not rating you, to a club letting you go, to making a poor decision. However that may be, you develop this resilience, and when you take that into the workplace, you realise that someone's saying to you, "Sorry, we're not going to give you the job," or "Why did you do that? That was the wrong thing to do." You realise then that actually I'm equipped to deal with that. Cool. You don't. It's not okay. It's not a personal slant. It's just someone else's opinion, and the next person might think differently. And again, from my perspective, I think my ability to deal with people. People often, what's your main strength? And I go, I'm good with people. And you say it in a timid way, like it's nothing. But when you think about it, life is about people. Business and industry is about people and relationships. And you've got the ability. I know you personally. Having the ability to have a conversation with the CEO of an organisation or someone that sweeps the toilets on the same level, that's invaluable. And these are the life lessons that I've picked up through playing sport. And taking that into the work environment allows you to build rapport with people. So what you may be lacking in experience or qualification, the lessons you've learned through professional sport and the ability you've gained not to take things personally and to shrug things off and to actually turn it into a positive. I think they're the key things for me. And I would implore anybody that's doubting themselves and their abilities to transfer into the workplace, just to take a little step back and go, well, actually, do you know what? I could do that. And don't be put off by job specs and job descriptions. They're designed to put you off. Yeah. So, I mean, job descriptions are designed to make you think, I'm not going to apply for that job because but that's what it's all about. It's about, as you said, taking the risk, asking the question, challenging yourself, but also taking reassurance from the fact that you've learned an awful lot and gained an awful lot of experience, whatever walk of life, whatever sport you've played in. You've got the ability. You just need to put yourself in the environment to learn and develop, and then people will want to feed off your energy because that's what we're good at. That's what we've done for years. We've been a part of a team. We thrive in a team environment, and who knows? You might surprise yourself.
Definitely, mate. Brilliant. Great insight. Love the chat. Some invaluable information there. Hope the listeners enjoyed it. We'll have to catch up soon. Obviously, we need to get the WhatsApp group going again. It started off and fizzled out. The pandemic's hit us and it's kind of curtailed things a little bit. But hopefully, once that's kind of died over and the parameters are kind of lifted slightly, we'll start again and we'll hopefully get something sorted so we can all meet up again.
Love that, mate. Absolutely.
Really appreciate you coming on today and enjoyed the chat, mate. Good luck, and obviously we'll speak soon.
Likewise, Dan. Keep up the good work, mate. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
No problem. See you soon, mate.
Thanks, pal.